There are several other strategies that end up being more focused than the traditional online and newer strategies. These include things like customer retention strategies and pricing strategies. Customer retention strategies help you retain your customers and keep your customers coming back. And you do this by personalizing the experience for the consumer. In order to personalize the experience, you could use data from, of course, search engine queries, things like clickstream history or data, which is how the consumer clicks around your website, social network data, and by also looking at the integration of offline personal data and records. The effectiveness of these types of data on customer retention strategies is still inconclusive, and of course, there are privacy issues that come out of using personal data from consumers in this manner. With all of this data and all of this information that you can get from websites, companies are really able to customize the product or the service offering that you, the consumer, get when you're online. This has resulted in the concept known as customer co-production, which means that by you browsing repeatedly online, you are basically influencing the products or services that come up whenever you're online. Pricing strategies online are much the same as you would see in any retail store physically. In terms of pricing, generally, pricing has been based on things like fixed cost, variable costs, and an understanding of how your price affects the demand and supply of your item. One thing that we see companies doing a lot now, even online, is price discrimination, where they sell products to different people or different groups or different markets based on that market or that consumer's willingness to pay. Other pricing strategies that we see being replicated online would be using the concept of the freemium, which can be used many times to build market awareness. Versioning, where you create multiple versions of the product, selling essentially the same product to different market at different prices. Bundling and dynamic pricing. Dynamic pricing, especially in the airline industry and on sites like Amazon. The internet, by its very nature, allows for the sale of obscure products with little demand. There's substantial revenue that is achieved because of this, because again, there are net zero inventory costs, there are little marketing costs, and there's search and recommendation engines which can drive consumers directly to your product. Here is some more information on what we deem long tail marketing.
Hi, I'm David Kilkelly. Welcome to Blinkback Video Marketing. I thought today I'd talk to you a little bit about the long tail and why I think it's a really interesting idea and how it affects online markets. So the long tail basically was an idea that was developed by a guy called Chris Anderson some years ago. And what it is a way of understanding how the internet enables niche markets. And when you understand how that works, you can tap those niche markets and make use of them. So let's have a look at an example to see how this works. So let's take a look at something like Waterstones. Okay, here's Waterstones, very famous high street bookstore, and they stock a wide range of different books. So they'll stock books on gardening and hobbies and novels and all sorts of different things. But their shelf space is ultimately limited. So if I go into Waterstones and I want a book on gardening, I can find probably several books on gardening, but I can't necessarily find hundreds of books on gardening in lots of different areas because they haven't got room to stock all of that and it's not financially viable to them. If I go onto Amazon, then you can find pretty much anything that you want. Amazon is an online model where space doesn't really matter anymore. This is an Amazon bookstore, basically. This is the warehouse where Amazon stores its products. So you can see there that space isn't an issue. Okay, that's not the problem. So here's a book on Amazon called The Encyclopedia of Ornamental Grasses. So very niche, very specific area of gardening. And there'll be lots of different books on all of the different niche areas of gardening that you can get through Amazon that are like that. If 1% of customers want to buy a book on ornamental grasses, then in a local area that might just be 5 people. If 1% of a global market of customers want to buy a book on ornamental grasses, that could amount to thousands and thousands of people. So it makes it worthwhile for Amazon to stock that book. And I've got an interesting statistic that kind of illustrates this. It's quite an old one. But in 2008, 36.7% of Amazon's sales were made up of niche markets, niche book markets. If you look at this graph, this is what the long tail looks like. And you can see here in this front part of the graph, this is where Waterstones would stock most of their stuff. So this is the kind of bestseller list and all the things that would fit on the shelves in Waterstones, the things that are popular, that everyone wants to buy. But this bit here is the bit that they can't stock. This tail basically goes on forever into an ever-decreasing number of smaller niches. And this is where Waterstones can't really compete because they physically can't stock that number of books. Amazon doesn't have that problem. So if you take that idea and you apply it to a search function like Amazon Search or Google Search, you start to see how it works. If you're trying to compete for sales on broad search terms, so on terms like coffee or shoes or gardening, you're never going to be able to cut through the noise of everybody else competing for those search terms. And if we look back at our graph, this area here are those broad search terms. If you look down into more increasingly niche search terms, so if you're selling products in those niche areas, then the small number of people who are searching for terms like ornamental grasses will come across your site. There's less competition in this area and higher conversions, whereas in this area, there's much greater competition and much lower conversions. Once you've opened that door in that niche area, you can steal attention away from the big players. And that's valuable not just in terms of a sale, but in terms of building your brand and your online presence as well. So I hope you found that interesting. If you can find that really, really specific thing about your business or that really, really niche item that you sell and use that just to cut through that noise, then that could add some real benefit and some real value to your business online. My name's David Kilkelly, and this is Blinkback Video Marketing.
I think everyone would agree that the internet has drastically changed how we market and promote products. But what are the main impacts on marketing? First, of course, the scope of marketing communications has broadened. We now have more channels that we can use to communicate with our consumers. The richness of the marketing communications has improved. The information intensity of the marketplace has expanded. And the always-on mobile environment as well has expanded marketing opportunities. One of the reasons why the internet has had the impact it has currently is because of web transaction logs. These web logs are built into the web server software and they record user activity at that website. It provides us with a lot of marketing information, including things like the information that is pulled from registration forms and whatever you put in your shopping cart. These web transaction logs help answer questions such as what are the major patterns of interest and purchase of the consumer, and after the home page, where do customers go first or second or third? What page do they spend the longest time on? All of these are things that you can do through your web transaction log. Tracking files also help us record consumer data. Files are used to browse and to track consumers as they move from site to site. There are 4 types of tracking files that you will generally find. First of all, they're cookies, they're flash cookies, they're beacons, which are otherwise known as bugs, and apps. You then must have somewhere to store all this data. Databases within your company help you to profile the consumer to see the different types of consumers you have. It helps you store records and the attributes of the different consumers, and it allows you to undergo what we call database management systems, or it allows you to build a database management system. Traditionally, this is referred to as the software that you use to create, maintain, and access the database that you're using internally. Within your database, you often have what's referred to as the data warehouse. The data warehouse collects the firm's transactional and customer data in a single location for offline analysis. Data mining is a technique that businesses often use to get or to analyze the patterns in data and to model the behavior of consumers by looking at the data within their database. With access to all this information, the problem that many businesses have now is that we have too much data. We're getting data from web traffic, from email, from social media content. And the traditional database management system is unable to process this large volume of data. What we have coming out of this is we have software solutions like Hadoop, and what they're doing is that they're basically providing a software that helps analyze the large amounts of data that businesses are exposed to or that businesses gather on a day-to-day basis. The vast amount of data has also allowed companies to create their own marketing automation systems and CRM systems. CRM systems help manage the relationship with customers once that purchase is made. By creating customer profiles, you're looking at things like product usage or product summary usage, demographic and psychographic data, profitability measures, contact history, and marketing and sales information. The customer data can then be used by the company to develop and sell additional products, identify your most profitable consumers, and to optimize the service delivery. In measuring your website's ability to really convert or to really be effective, you want to take certain metrics. On the side of the audience or the market, you want to look at things like impressions, click-through rate, view rate, hits, page views, etc. On the side of the customer, you want to look at things like your acquisition rate and your conversion rate, your browse to buy ratio, your view to cart ratio, and things like your checkout conversion rate. In terms of measuring your social marketing, you want to look at things, of course, like your conversion ratio, your applause ratio, how often people like things that you do, amplification, and sentiment ratio. Email metrics would include things like the open rate, delivery rate, click-through, and the bounce back rate. With all that being said, though, how really does this online advertising, or how well does this online advertising work? The online advertising is great because you can actually look at your return on investment to measure how good the campaign has been. You can also search the highest click-through rates through things like search engine ads or permission email campaigns. You have rich media, high video interaction. You have online channels that compare favorably with traditional channels, and some of them even better. And you have the most powerful marketing campaigns that always try to use multiple media or multiple channels. So these channels would include things like online, catalog or direct marketing, TV, radio, newspaper, stores. Again, drawing us back to that whole thing about being consistent using all the channels that can direct you to your consumer. There are many different ways that you can cost online advertising. In general, though, online marketing is more expensive on a CPM or cost per thousand basis, but much more effective in producing sales. Web analytical software like Google Analytics and Adobe Analytics are also being used to analyze data at each stage of the customer conversion process. So, looking at data as that customer moves from simple awareness to engagement with the product or company, to interaction with the product or company, to purchase, and then finally to loyalty and post-purchase satisfaction. So web analytical programs like these are enabling companies to look and study at consumers using the data at every stage of this process. And that, people, brings us to the end of our two-part lecture on e-commerce marketing and advertising tools. Any questions, please feel free to leave those questions in our discussion forum.